water glass hit the marble table with a sound like a gunshot. Marcus Reed didn't flinch. He'd stopped flinching years ago, back when flinching meant survival. When showing weakness in the boardrooms of New York meant bleeding money, respect, power. But here, in this overpriced Italian restaurant in downtown Atlanta, with its gold-trimmed mirrors and waitstaff, who moved like they were performing surgery, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a decade. Shame, not because of what she said. Words were just air-shaped by malice, but because of the laughter, that high, crystalline laugh that cut through the murmur of expensive conversations and clinked wine glasses. The kind of laugh that said you don't belong here in a language older than any menu. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the waitress Amber, her name tag said, like that mattered, stood with her hand on her hip, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. "This establishment has a certain ... standard. And frankly, you look like you walked in from the bus stop." Marcus looked down at his clothes, jeans, a black hoodie, sneakers that cost more than her monthly rent. But she didn't know that, couldn't see that. All she saw was a black man in casual clothes, and her brain had done the rest of the equation. Poor, homeless, criminal, wrong. The other diners were watching now. A white couple in the corner, the woman's hand frozen halfway to her mouth. A businessman in a suit that probably cost $3,000, his eyes gleaming with that particular brand of curiosity people reserve for car crashes. A young black couple near the window, the woman's face tight with second-hand humiliation. "I have a reservation," Marcus said quietly. His voice was calm. It was always calm. That's what 15 years of building a tech empire from nothing had taught him. Never let them see you sweat. Never let them hear you break. Under what name? Amber's tone suggested she already knew this was a lie. "Reed, Marcus Reed, 7:30. She didn't even check the tablet, just laughed again, that same cutting sound. "Sir, we don't have walk-ins pretending to be. Check the reservation." Something in his voice made her pause. Maybe it was the edge beneath the calm, the steel wrapped in velvet. She picked up the tablet, her manicured nails clicking against the screen. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. Then it came back, harder. "Oh, there is a Reed. But that's obviously a coincidence. This reservation was made by Marcus Reed, CEO of Titan Tech Solutions, and you... She gestured at him like he was a stain on her apron. "You are clearly not him." The businessman laughed, one sharp bark of sound. That's when something inside Marcus went very, very quiet. "Stay with me, because what happens in the next hour won't just change Marcus's life at all, redefine what power actually looks like." 20 minutes earlier, Marcus had been in his penthouse, staring at his reflection in floor-to-ceiling windows that framed Atlanta like a kingdom he'd conquered. Titan Tech Solutions, the company he'd built from a cracked laptop and a dream in his mother's basement, was worth $2.3 billion. He'd just closed a deal with the Department of Defense. He was on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list at 28, the cover of Black Enterprise at 32. He was a king, but kings get tired. And tonight, Marcus Reed just wanted to eat Italian food in peace, maybe sip some wine that cost more than it should, and forget that his inbox had 847 unread messages and his board was pushing him to go public. He'd dressed down on purpose. Hoodie jeans, the sneakers his younger brother had gotten him for his birthday. He wanted to feel normal for one goddamn night. The universe, apparently, had other plans. Now, standing in La Rosa Bianca with a waitress treating him like trash and a dining room full of people who'd already decided what he was worth, Marcus felt the old fire. The one he'd buried under silk ties and boardroom politeness. The one that had gotten him thrown out of 3 schools, that had made him fight for every scrap of respect in a world that thought black boys were either rappers or criminals. "I'd like to speak to the manager," he said. Amber rolled her eyes. Literally rolled them like he was a child asking for candy. "Mr. Castellano is very busy. Get him." She huffed, turned on her heel, and walked toward the back. Marcus watched her go, his hands in his pockets, his face a mask. The restaurant had gone back to its conversations, but the energy had shifted. People were still watching, still judging. The black couple by the window, the woman caught his eye. She mouthed 2 words, "I'm sorry." Marcus nodded once, then looked away. Because he wasn't sorry. Not anymore. 30 seconds later, a man in an expensive suit emerged from the kitchen. Giovanni Castellano. Marcus knew him by reputation, 3rd-generation restaurateur, old Atlanta money, the kind of man who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. He had silver hair, a deep tan, and the kind of smile that was all teeth and no warmth. "Sir, I understand there's been a misunderstanding." Castellano's voice was smooth, practiced. "But I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We have a dress code. You served that man a ribeye 20 minutes ago," Marcus said, nodding toward the businessman. "He's wearing a suit, sure, but his shoes are scuffed, his tie's crooked, and I can smell the cigarettes on him from here. So let's not pretend this is about dress codes." Castellano's smile didn't waver. "Sir, how much?" "Excuse me." Marcus pulled out his phone, opened an app, started typing. "How much is this place worth?" "Ballpark, 3 million, 4. Castellano's face went very still. "I don't see how that's relevant, because I'm about to buy it." The restaurant went silent. Not the polite silence of people pretending not to listen. The absolute, breath-held silence of a room that just heard something impossible. Marcus held up his phone. On the screen was his banking app. The balance showed 8 figures, and that was just his liquid assets. "I'm Marcus Reed, CEO of Titan Tech Solutions." And in about, he checked his watch, 15 minutes, you're going to be out of a job. Because I'm buying this restaurant, tonight. And if you think that's the most savage thing Marcus does, you need to stay until the end. Because revenge is a dish best served with a side of complete and utter annihilation. Castellano laughed. It was a nervous laugh, the kind that people make when they're not sure if they're being pranked. "Sir, this restaurant isn't for sale. Everything's for sale." Marcus's voice was ice. "Call your owner. Right now, the owner is my father, and he would never. Your father is Antonio Castellano. He owns 3 restaurants in Atlanta, 2 in Miami, and he's been trying to sell this one for 8 months because it's bleeding money. I know because I looked it up while your waitress was laughing at me." Marcus took a step forward. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your father. You're going to tell him Marcus Reed is standing in his restaurant with a check for $4.2 million cash, no inspection, closing in 72 hours, and you're going to do it in the next 60 seconds. Or I'm walking out that door and buying the building this restaurant is in. Then I'm evicting you and turning this place into a homeless shelter." The room was a held breath. Castellano's face had gone from tan to pale. His hand shook slightly as he pulled out his phone. He walked toward the back, his voice a low murmur. Marcus stood in the center of the dining room, waiting. His heart was a war drum. His hands were steady. The black couple by the window. The man raised his water glass. A silent salute. Marcus nodded back. 3 minutes later, Castellano returned. His face was ashen. "My father, would like to speak with you." Marcus took the phone. Mr. Castellano, Marcus Reed. I'm standing in your restaurant. I'd like to buy it tonight. There was a pause, then a voice, thick with an Italian accent. You're serious? Dead serious? Why? Because your son's employee just humiliated me in front of a room full of people. And I don't forget humiliation, ever. Another pause. Longer this time, then 4.5 million. Cash, 72 hours. Deal. Marcus handed the phone back to Giovanni, whose hand trembled as he took it. Then Marcus turned to Amber, who was standing near the kitchen, her face white as chalk. You're fired, he said simply. And before you leave, I want you to understand something. You didn't just laugh at a broke black man tonight. You laughed at a man who's going to make sure every single person in this city knows your name and what you did. Good luck finding another job. He turned to the dining room. Everyone here eats free tonight. On me. Enjoy your meals. Then Marcus Reed walked out of La Rosa Bianca with his head high, his hands in his pockets, and the knowledge that sometimes power isn't about being seen. It's about making sure they never forget you. The night air hit Marcus like a baptism. He stood on the sidewalk outside La Rosa Bianca, the neon sign above him buzzing like a dying wasp, and breathed deep, slow. The kind of breath you take when you've just done something irreversible and you're not sure if you're a genius or insane. His phone was already ringing. Tariq, his CFO, best friend since Howard University, the only person who could call him at 9 p.m. and get away with it. Tell me you didn't just buy a restaurant out of spite, Tariq said without preamble. Marcus smiled. I bought a restaurant out of spite. Marcus, brother, what the hell? She laughed at me, in front of everybody. Told me I couldn't afford the place, so you bought the place. Seemed proportionate at the time. Tariq was quiet for 3 seconds. Then he started laughing. Deep, rolling laughter that made Marcus's chest loosen for the first time in an hour. Man, you are crazy, but I respect it. Okay, I'm calling our legal team. We'll have contracts drawn up by morning. Thanks, yeah, but Marcus, yeah. Don't make this a habit. We're tech, not hospitality. Marcus hung up and stared at the restaurant. Through the windows, he could see people eating, talking, laughing. Life going on as if the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. As if a black man in a hoodie hadn't just rewritten the power dynamics of their entire evening. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Dinner Sunday, 2 p.m. Don't be late. He smiled. Typed back, yes ma'am. Then another text. This one from a number he didn't recognize. This is Castellano. My father wants to meet you. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Marcus didn't reply. Just pocketed his phone and started walking. The next morning, Marcus wore a suit. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. Tom Ford, charcoal grey, with a burgundy tie and cufflinks that had been his grandfather's. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw what he'd built, not just the company, not just the wealth, but the armor. The version of himself that walked into rooms and made people sit up straight. Titan Tech's headquarters was a glass tower in Midtown, all chrome and exposed brick and motivational quotes on the walls. Marcus hated those. Quotes: innovate or die, disrupt everything. Be the exception, but the board loved them, and investors loved them, so they stayed. He walked through the lobby, and heads turned. They always did. Not just because he was the CEO, but because Marcus Reed had a presence. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to see straight through bullshit. He'd learned that look from his father, a mechanic who'd taught him that respect isn't given, it's commanded. His assistant, Janelle, was waiting by the elevator. Your 10 o'clock is here. Conference room B, how's he look? Nervous. Good. Antonio Castellano was 73 years old, with liver spots on his hands and eyes that had seen too much. He stood when Marcus entered, extending a hand that shook slightly. Mr. Reed, thank you for meeting with me. Marcus shook his hand. Firm grip, eye contact, then sat. You wanted to talk. Antonio sat too, folding his hands on the table. I want to apologize for my son, for the waitress, for ... everything. Apologies don't change what happened. No, they don't. Antonio looked down at his hands. But I want you to know, I built that restaurant 40 years ago. It was my dream, my legacy. And now, ... double quotes. He trailed off. Now it's mine, Marcus finished. Yes, Antonio looked up, and there was something raw in his eyes. But I'm asking you, begging you, don't destroy it. It's not just a building. It's memories. My wife and I had our first date there, back when it was just a food truck. My son proposed to his wife in that restaurant. My grandchildren, your grandchildren, Marcus interrupted, will have to learn that actions have consequences. Your son stood there and let his employee humiliate me. He didn't step in, didn't apologize. He laughed. I know, do you? Marcus leaned forward. Do you know what it's like to walk into a place and have people decide you're trash before you even open your mouth? To work your entire life to build something, to be something, and still get treated like you're nothing because of your skin. Antonio was quiet for a long moment. Then, no, I don't. Then we're done here. Marcus stood. Antonio stood too, faster than Marcus expected for a man his age. Wait, please. Something in his voice made Marcus pause. What do you want from me? Antonio asked, and his voice cracked. Money. I'll pay you back every cent. Just ... Don't shut it down. Marcus studied him, saw the desperation, the fear, the love for something that was bigger than profit margins and quarterly reports. And then he saw his mother. She'd worked 3 jobs to keep him and his brother fed, had scrubbed floors in buildings she'd never be able to afford, had smiled through humiliation after humiliation because that's what you did to survive. I'm not shutting it down, Marcus said quietly. Antonio's face flooded with relief. But I am changing it. New management, new staff, new name. And every month, the restaurant will host a free dinner for people from the neighborhood. The real neighborhood. Not just the people who can afford $40 pasta. Antonio blinked. That's actually beautiful. Yeah, it is. Marcus moved toward the door, then stopped. And Antonio, teach your son what respect looks like. Because the next time he disrespects someone, I won't just buy his restaurant. I'll buy his whole life. He walked out, leaving Antonio standing in the conference room, and felt something shift inside him. Revenge was sweet, but purpose was sweeter. The news broke like wildfire. By noon, every tech blog, business journal, and local news station was running the story. Black tech CEO buys restaurant after racial discrimination. The headlines ranged from celebratory to cynical, but they all agreed on one thing. Marcus Reed had just made himself impossible to ignore. His phone didn't stop ringing. Interview requests, partnership offers, people he hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanting to reconnect. Marcus ignored most of them, but one call he answered. This is Reed. Marcus, it's Simone. He froze. Simone Hartley, his ex. The woman he'd almost married before Titan Tech exploded and consumed his life. The woman who'd walked away because she said he loved his company more than he loved her. She'd been right, Simone. It's been 3 years. I know. Her voice was softer than he remembered. I saw the news. Are you okay? The question caught him off guard. Not congratulations, or that was badass, or you showed them. Just, are you okay? I'm fine, he said automatically. Liar. He smiled despite himself. Yeah, maybe. There was a pause. Then, I'm proud of you, Marcus. What you did buying that place, turning it into something good, that's the man I fell in love with. Not the CEO. Just, ... You. His throat tightened. Simone, I'm not calling to get back together. I just wanted you to know that. Okay. Take care of yourself, Marcus. She hung up before he could respond. Marcus sat in his office for 10 minutes, staring at his phone, feeling like he'd just been gutted and healed in the same breath. That afternoon, he drove to his mother's house. She lived in the same neighborhood where he'd grown up West End, where the houses were small and the lawns were neat and everybody knew everybody's business. His mother, Lorraine Reed, was 68 years old and refused to move, no matter how much money Marcus threw at her. This is my home, she'd say. These are my people, I'm not leaving. He pulled up to her house, a modest two-bedroom, with a garden she tended like it was Versailles. She was on the porch, watering her roses, wearing a floral dress and a wide-brimmed hat that made her look like she was about to host a garden party. Marcus Reed, she said, without turning round. You buying restaurants now? He laughed. You saw the news. Baby, the whole world saw the news. She set down the watering can and turned to face him. Her eyes, the same dark brown as his, studied him carefully. You okay? That question again. I'm fine, Mama. She walked up to him, cupped his face in her hands, and looked at him the way only mothers can. Like she could see every secret, every wound, every lie. No, you're not. His throat closed up. Come inside, she said gently. I made peach cobbler. They sat at her kitchen table, the same table where he'd done his homework, where he'd told her he was dropping out of college to start a company, where she'd cried when he showed her his first $1 million check. You know what your father would say? Lorraine asked, cutting him a slice of cobbler. Marcus's father had died when he was 16. Heart attack, gone before the ambulance arrived. He'd say, I did good. No. Lorraine set the plate in front of him. He'd say you did what you had to do, but now you got to figure out what you want to do. I want to run my company. That's not what I asked. Marcus took a bite of cobbler. It was perfect, like always. Sweet and warm and tasting like home. What do you want me to say, Mama? I want you to be honest with yourself. Because baby, I watch you on TV. I see you in those magazines. And you know what I see? What? A man who's running, fast as he can, from something. Marcus put down his fork. I'm not running. Then why'd you buy that restaurant? Because they disrespected me. No. Lorraine leaned forward. They disrespected you, and you bought the restaurant because you wanted to prove you're more than what they thought. But baby, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody. You already know who you are. He looked at her, at this woman who'd raised him and his brother on minimum wage and love, who'd never asked him for a dime, who'd taught him that respect starts from within. I'm tired, Mama, he admitted. I'm tired of fighting, of proving, of ... All of it. She reached across the table and took his hand. Then stop, just for a minute. Stop and breathe. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, Marcus. And right now, baby, you're running on fumes. He squeezed her hand. I don't know how to stop. Then learn. Start with that restaurant. Make it something beautiful, something that matters. Not because you're angry, because you care. Marcus nodded. Yeah, okay. If you're still with me, drop a comment. What would you do if someone humiliated you like that? Because Marcus's story is just beginning, and trust me, the best part is yet to come. 3 days later, Marcus stood inside La Rosa Bianca with an architect, a designer, and Tariq, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Remind me why we're doing this, Tariq asked, flipping through blueprints. Because it matters, Marcus said simply. The restaurant was empty now, stripped of its pretension. Just tables and chairs and potential. Marcus walked through it slowly, imagining what it could be. I want to keep the bones, he told the architect, a woman named Keisha, who specialized in adaptive reuse. But I want it to feel ... welcoming, warm, like a place where anybody can walk in and feel at home. Even in a hoodie, Keisha said with a knowing smile, especially in a hoodie. They spent 2 hours going over designs. Open kitchen, community seating, a wall dedicated to local artists, a menu that honored Italian roots but also celebrated Southern soul food because Marcus's grandmother had made the best collard greens in Atlanta, and that deserved a place too. This is going to cost a fortune, Tariq muttered. Good, Marcus said. Let's make sure it's worth it. The grand reopening was set for 6 weeks later. In that time, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He got involved. Not just as an investor, but as a builder. He interviewed every staff member personally, hired a chef who'd grown up in West End, partnered with a local non-profit to provide job training for formerly incarcerated people, and every week he hosted a dinner for the neighborhood, free, no reservations, just good food and better company. His board thought he was insane. This is a distraction, one of them said during a quarterly meeting. You're spreading yourself too thin. Marcus looked at him, a white man in his 60s who'd never struggled for anything, and smiled. Then consider it a lesson in priorities. The restaurant became his sanctuary, the place where he could be Marcus Reed, not the CEO, where he could laugh with the staff, taste test mac and cheese, and remember why he'd started all of this in the first place. Not for money, for legacy. The night before the reopening, Marcus sat alone in the restaurant, a glass of bourbon in his hand, and thought about Amber. He'd kept his promise. Her name had spread, not through cruelty, but through truth. She'd lost her job, lost opportunities, and Marcus felt ... nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just sadness. Because he knew what it was like to be on the other side, to be judged, to be dismissed. And he wondered if she'd learned anything, or if she was just angrier now. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Amber. Can we talk? Marcus stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, tomorrow, 2 p.m., La Rosa, Bianca. He didn't know what he'd say to her, didn't know if he even wanted to, but he knew one thing: grace was harder than revenge. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to try. The reopening was magic. The restaurant, now called Rosa's Table, was packed. Families from the neighborhood, local politicians, celebrities. And at the center of it all, Marcus Reed, in jeans and a button-down, shaking hands and hugging people and feeling, for the first time in years, like he was exactly where he belonged. At 2 p.m., Amber arrived. She looked different, smaller, somehow, her confidence replaced by something fragile. Marcus met her at the door and led her to a quiet table in the back. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why'd you reach out?" Marcus asked. "Because I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to hear it. I was wrong. I was cruel. and I've spent every day since thinking about what I did to you." Marcus studied her. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I needed to say it." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus said, "I forgive you." Amber's eyes filled with tears. "You don't have to, I know, but I'm choosing to, because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting you to die. And I'm done poisoning myself." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "For what it's worth, what you've done here, it's incredible." "Yeah," Marcus said softly, "it is." She left a few minutes later, and Marcus sat alone, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. If this story is hitting you, don't just watch, follow for more. Because Marcus's journey is far from over, and you don't want to miss what happens next. 6 months after Rosa's Table opened, Marcus Reed was profiled in the New York Times. The headline read, "The CEO who turned humiliation into hope." The article was glowing. It talked about the restaurant's community programs, the jobs it created, the way it had become a symbol of something bigger, proof that wealth and power could be used for good. Marcus read it in his office, Tariq sitting across from him with a smirk. "You're a hero now, huh?" "Heroes are for comic books," Marcus said, tossing the paper aside. "I'm just a guy who bought a restaurant." "A guy who bought a restaurant and changed a neighborhood," Tariq corrected. "Don't downplay it, man. You did something real." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Yeah, maybe." But even as he said it, he felt the weight, the expectation, the pressure to keep being Marcus Reed, the inspirational CEO, and some days he didn't know if he could carry it. That night, he had dinner at Rosa's Table. He did that a lot, now showed up unannounced, sat at the bar, and just ... existed. Tonight, the place was buzzing. Families celebrating birthdays, a couple on a first date, an old man eating alone, his plate full of lasagna and memories. Marcus watched them all and felt something settle in his chest. This is why, Mr. Reed." He turned. A young black man, maybe 25, stood next to him, looking nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say thank you for this place. For ... everything." Marcus smiled. "What's your name?" "Darius." "Nice to meet you, Darius. You come here a lot." "Every week. I'm in school business major, and this place is like my inspiration, you know." Marcus felt something crack open inside him. "Yeah, I know." They talked for 20 minutes. About dreams, about fear, about what it meant to build something from nothing. And when Darius finally left, Marcus sat at the bar and realized something. He wasn't just building a restaurant, he was building hope. But not everyone was happy. 2 weeks later, Marcus got a call from Giovanni Castellano. "We need to talk." They met at a coffee shop downtown. Giovanni looked older, worn down by something Marcus couldn't name. "What's going on?" Marcus asked. "My father died," Giovanni said flatly. Marcus felt the words like a punch. "I'm sorry, are you?" Giovanni's voice was bitter. "You took his restaurant, his legacy, and now he's gone." "I didn't take anything. I bought it, fair and square. You humiliated him." Marcus leaned forward. "Your father humiliated himself by letting his son run a place that treated people like garbage. Don't put that on me." Giovanni looked away. He never got over it. Losing the restaurant, it broke him. Marcus wanted to feel sympathy, wanted to feel guilt, but all he felt was anger. "So what do you want from me? An apology?" "Because I'm not giving you one. I want you to know that you're not a hero. You're just another rich guy who bought his way into feeling good about himself." Marcus stood. "You're right. I'm not a hero, but I'm also not the villain in your story. That's on you and your father. Figure your shit out, Giovanni, and stop blaming me for your family's failures." He walked out, leaving Giovanni sitting there, and felt nothing but exhaustion. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He stood in his penthouse, looking out at the city, and wondered if Giovanni was right. If he was just performing goodness, using his wealth to soothe his ego. His phone rang. His brother Darren. "Yo, big bro, you good?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Because you sound like you're drowning." Marcus laughed, hollow. "Maybe I am. Talk to me." And so he did. Told Darren about Giovanni, about the guilt, about the exhaustion of being a symbol instead of a person. "Man, forget that dude," Darren said. "You're doing something real, and if people can't see that, that's on them. Yeah. Now get some sleep, and stop overthinking you're black, successful, and making a difference. That's gonna piss people off. Let M stay mad." Marcus smiled. "Thanks, D, anytime. Love you, bro. Love you too." He hung up and stared at the city, at the lights, at the life pulsing below, and decided he wasn't going to stop. Not for guilt, not for fear, not for anyone, because this mattered. A year after buying Rose's table, Marcus was invited to speak at a TEDx event. The theme was redefining power, and the organizers wanted him to tell his story. Marcus almost said no. He hated public speaking, hated the performative nature of it, the way people clapped and nodded and then forgot everything 5 minutes later. But Tariq convinced him. "This is bigger than you, man. People need to hear this." So Marcus agreed. The event was held in a downtown theater, packed with entrepreneurs, activists, and artists. Marcus stood backstage, adjusting his tie, his heart hammering. "You're going to crush it," Janelle whispered. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. When they called his name, he walked on stage to thunderous applause. The lights were blinding. The crowd was a sea of faces. And for a moment, Marcus felt like he was drowning. Then he saw them: Lorraine, Darren, Tariq, Simonol, sitting in the front row. His people, and he breathed. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady. "My name is Marcus Reed, and a year ago, I walked into a restaurant and got laughed at for looking poor. The crowd went silent, so I bought the restaurant. Laughter, applause." Marcus smiled. "But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about what happens after, because buying that restaurant was easy. Turning it into something meaningful, that was hard." He talked for 20 minutes, about Rose's table, about grace, about legacy. And when he finished, the crowd stood and cheered so loud it shook the walls. Afterward, people swarmed him, wanting selfies, business cards, advice. But the person who mattered most was Simone. She hugged him tight. "You did good, Marcus. Thanks, Sim. I mean it. You're changing lives." He pulled back, looking at her. "Are you happy?" She smiled. "I am. Are you?" Marcus thought about it, really thought. "I'm getting there. Good. Keep going." She walked away, and Marcus felt something close. A chapter ending, a new one beginning. 2 years later, Rose's table was thriving. It had won awards, been featured in magazines, become a destination, but more than that, it had become a home. Marcus walked in one evening and found Darius now a manager training new staff. The kid had graduated, turned down corporate offers, and chosen to stay. "Why?" Marcus had asked. "Because this place saved me," Darius said simply. "Now I want to save someone else." Marcus stood in the doorway, watching, and felt tears sting his eyes. This was legacy. But success brought new challenges. Investors wanted to franchise Rosas Table, turn it into a chain. Marcus refused. "This isn't McDonald's," he told them. "It's one place, one community, and that's how it stays." They pushed back, threatened to pull funding. Marcus told them to go to hell. Titantech's board was furious. "You're jeopardizing the company's reputation," one board member said during an emergency meeting. "Investors are getting nervous. They think you're distracted." Marcus looked around the conference table. 12 faces, 11 of them white, all of them thinking they knew better than him how to run his company. "Let me be clear," Marcus said, his voice cold as winter. "Titantech is worth $3.2 billion. We just closed contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies. Our stock is up 18% this quarter. So when you tell me I'm distracted, what you really mean is you don't like that I'm spending my own money on something that doesn't make you richer." Silence. "Rosas Table is mine. Not Titantech's. Not yours. Mine. And if any of you have a problem with that, there's the door." No one moved. "Good, meeting adjourned." Tariq caught him in the hallway afterward. That was intense. They needed to hear it. "Marcus, they're going to push back harder now. Let them." Marcus stopped, turning to face his friend. "I built this company from nothing. Absolutely nothing. I sat in my mama's basement writing code on a laptop I bought from a pawn shop. I ate ramen for 2 years straight. I got rejected by 47 investors before one said yes. So, if they think I'm going to let them dictate what I do with my life, they don't know me at all." Tariq smiled, shaking his head. "You're crazy, man. But I love you for it. Love you too, brother." That weekend, Marcus drove to his father's grave. He did this, sometimes came out here when the noise got too loud, when he needed to remember where he came from. The cemetery was quiet, just birds and wind and the distant hum of the highway. He sat on the grass next to the headstone. James Reed, beloved husband and father, 1955 to 2008. "Hey Pops," Marcus said softly. "It's been a minute." He told his father everything. About the restaurant, about the board, about the exhaustion of carrying expectations he never asked for. "I don't know if I'm doing this right," Marcus admitted. "Some days I feel like I'm building something real. Other days I feel like I'm just ... performing. Like I'm playing the role of successful black man and everyone's waiting for me to mess up." The wind rustled through the trees. "I miss you, Dad. Miss your advice. You always knew what to say." Marcus sat there for an hour, letting the silence heal him. When he finally stood to leave, he felt lighter. Not because he had answers, but because he'd asked the questions. 3 years after buying Rosas Table, Marcus Reed was featured on the cover of Forbes. The headline, "How One Act of Defiance Built an Empire of Empathy." The article detailed everything Titantech's continued success, Rosas Table's community impact, Marcus's philanthropic ventures. He'd started a foundation that funded blackened businesses, launched a coding boot camp for kids in underserved neighborhoods, became the kind of figure people pointed to when they talked about doing well and doing good. But Marcus barely recognized himself in the article. The man they described, confident, unshakable, visionary, felt like a character, someone performing a role. The real Marcus, he was tired, stretched thin, running on fumes and coffee and the stubborn belief that if he stopped, everything would fall apart. "You need a vacation," Lorraine told him over Sunday dinner. "Baby, you look exhausted." "I'm fine, Mama." She gave him that look, the one that said, "Don't lie to me." When's the last time you slept a full night? Marcus thought about it. Couldn't remember. That's what I thought. She stood, clearing plates. You're going to burn out, Marcus. And when you do, all this, she gestured vaguely, won't matter because you'll be too broken to enjoy it. I can't stop now. I'm not asking you to stop. I'm asking you to rest. There's a difference. Marcus wanted to argue, but he was so damn tired of arguing. Okay, I'll take a week off. Make it to Mama, 2 weeks. Marcus James Reed. Or I'm calling your brother and we're staging an intervention. He laughed despite himself. Yes, ma'am. 2 weeks later, Marcus was in Jamaica. Alone, no staff, no board members, no phone calls. Just him, a beach house, and the ocean. The first 3 days, he didn't know what to do with himself. He paced, checked his email obsessively, started and deleted a dozen texts to Tariq. But by day 4, something shifted. He woke up without an alarm, made breakfast slowly, sat on the beach and just ... existed. No agenda, no purpose, just the sun and the waves and the strange, unfamiliar feeling of peace. On day 7, he met a woman at a local restaurant. Her name was Nia. She was a teacher from Kingston, visiting family. She didn't know who he was, didn't care about Titan Tech or Forbes or any of it. They talked for 3 hours about books, about music, about the ways the world was broken and beautiful at the same time. You seem sad, she said at one point. Marcus blinked. I'm not sad. Yes, you are. Under all that confidence, there's sadness. He wanted to deny it, but something about her, the way she looked at him, like she could see past the armor, made him tell the truth. Yeah, maybe I am. Why? Because I've spent so long building things that I forgot to build myself. Nia nodded, like this made perfect sense. So build yourself now. How? Start by forgiving yourself for not being perfect. They spent the next week together, walking beaches, talking late into the night, laughing in ways Marcus had forgotten he could. And when it was time to leave, Nia kissed him goodbye and said, Don't go back to being that sad man, okay? I'll try. Good. Marcus flew home, feeling like he'd been cracked open and put back together. Different. Better. The first thing he did back in Atlanta was visit Rosa's table. It was lunch rush, the place packed with people. Darius saw him and grinned. Boss, you're back. I'm back. Marcus looked around at the life pulsing through the space. How's everything been? Perfect. We've been handling it, and they had. The restaurant had run flawlessly without him, because he'd built something sustainable. Something that didn't need him to micromanage every detail. He felt proud, and also a little unnecessary. But that was okay, because maybe that was the point, to build things that outlived you. That night, Marcus called a board meeting at Titan Tech. I'm stepping back, he announced. Shock rippled through the room. Not stepping down, he clarified. Stepping back. I'm promoting Tariq to co-CEO. He'll handle day-to-day operations. I'll focus on vision, strategy, and long-term growth. Marcus, are you sure? One board member asked. Completely. I've spent 10 years running this company like it's the only thing that matters. And it does matter. But so do other things. So does I matter. And I can't keep sacrificing myself for success. He looked around the table. This company is strong because of all of us, not just me. And it's time I trusted that. The board approved the change unanimously. Afterward, Tariq pulled him aside. You really okay with this? More than okay. I'm excited. About what? Marcus smiled. about figuring out what comes next. What came next was unexpected. Marcus started teaching. Once a week, he'd go to the coding boot camp he'd founded and worked with kids. Teenagers from neighborhoods like the one he grew up in, all of them hungry, brilliant, and underestimated. He loved it, loved seeing their faces light up when code finally clicked. Loved hearing their dreams, crazy, ambitious dreams that adults had told them were impossible. "You really think I can build an app?" one girl asked him. "I know you can," Marcus said. "I did it. Why can't you?" She smiled, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose without performance. This wasn't about building his legacy. It was about building theirs. Comment below. What's one dream you're chasing right now? Because Marcus's story proves that success isn't just about money, it's about meaning. For years after buying Rose's table, Marcus Reed fell in love. Her name was Neither, same woman from Jamaica. She'd reached out a month after his trip, just to say hi. They'd texted, then called. Then she flew to Atlanta for a weekend that turned into a week. Now, she was his partner. Not just romantically, but in life. She challenged him, called him out when he was being stubborn, made him laugh when he took himself too seriously. "You're doing it again," she said one night, watching him respond to work emails at midnight. "Doing what?" "Being a martyr." "The world won't end if you sleep, Marcus." He put down his phone. "I know, do you?" He looked at her, this woman, who'd somehow seen past every wall he'd built, and decided he was worth it anyway. "I'm trying, that's all I ask." She kissed him. "Now come to bed." He did. And for the first time in years, he slept through the night. But peace never lasts forever. 6 months later, Marcus got a call that shattered everything. It was Darren. His voice was shaking. "Marcus, it's Mama." His heart stopped. "What happened?" "She had a stroke. She's at Grady Memorial. You need to come now." Marcus drove 90 miles an hour through Atlanta traffic, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, his mind screaming no, 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 no. He burst into the hospital, found Darren in the waiting room. His brother looked destroyed. "How is she?" "They don't know yet. She's stable," but Darren's voice broke. "Marcus, what if we lose her?" "We're not losing her." Marcus pulled his brother into a hug. "She's the strongest person we know. She's going to be fine." He said it with conviction, because he had to, because if he let doubt in, he'd fall apart. Lorraine Reed spent 3 days in intensive care. Marcus and Darren didn't leave her side. They took shifts, held her hand, whispered prayers neither of them were sure they believed in. On the 3rd day, she woke up. "My boys," she said, her voice weak but clear. "Why are you looking so sad?" Marcus laughed through tears. "Because you scared the hell out of us, Mama." "Language," she scolded, and all 3 of them laughed. The doctor said she'd need physical therapy, speech therapy, months of recovery. But she'd survive. Marcus had never been more grateful for anything in his life. During those weeks of recovery, Marcus realized something. He'd spent his entire life building companies, restaurants, legacies. But he'd never stopped to enjoy what he'd built. Never stopped to be present. So he made a decision. He moved his mother into his penthouse, hired the best care team in Atlanta, and for the first time in 10 years, he put someone else first. "You don't have to do this," Lorraine said when he told her. "Yes, I do. You took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn," she cried. Marcus cried, and for once, he didn't feel weak for it. Caring for his mother changed Marcus. He became softer, more patient, less obsessed with control. He learned to let go of expectations, of pressure, of the need to be perfect. "You're different," Naya observed one night. "Good different or bad different?" "Good, you seem... Lighter, I feel lighter." And he did. Because for the first time, he wasn't running from something. He was running toward something. Toward love. Toward presence. Toward the life he'd been too busy to notice. 5 years after buying Rosa's table, Marcus proposed to Nia. He did it at the restaurant during one of their community dinners, surrounded by people who'd become family Darius, the staff, regulars who'd watched Rosa's table grow from an idea into a movement. "Nia Baptist," Marcus said, getting down on one knee in the middle of the dining room. "You saved my life, not because you fixed me, but because you loved me even when I was broken. Will you marry me?" She said yes. The restaurant erupted in cheers. The wedding was small, intimate. Just family and close friends at Rosa's table. Lorraine cried through the entire ceremony. Darren gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. Tariq served as best man and roasted Marcus relentlessly. "This man once told me he'd never get married," Tariq said. "Said he was married to the hustle. Well, look at him now. Married to an actual woman. Character development, y'all." Marcus laughed so hard he cried. That night, standing on the restaurant's patio with Naya in his arms, watching stars blink above Atlanta's skyline, Marcus felt something he'd been chasing his entire life. Contentment, not happiness that was fleeting, but contentment, the deep, abiding knowledge that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. "What are you thinking?" Naya asked. "That I used to think success was about money, about proving people wrong, about being the best. And now I think success is this, right here. You, family, purpose, love." She kissed him. "Took you long enough to figure that out." "Yeah, but I got there." "Yes, you did." 6 years after buying Rosa's table, tragedy struck. It was a Tuesday. Marcus was in a meeting when Darius called, his voice frantic. "Boss, there's a fire. Rosa's table wits on fire." Marcus's blood went cold. "What?" "The kitchen. Something went wrong." "The fire department's here, but Marcus, it's bad." He hung up and ran. By the time he arrived, half the restaurant was engulfed in flames. Firefighters were everywhere, hoses spraying, smoke billowing into the sky. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, watching his dream burn, and felt his heart shatter. "Everyone got out," Darius said, appearing beside him. "No one was hurt." "What happened?" "Faulty wiring." The inspector said it was an accident. An accident. Years of work. Millions of dollars. Countless lives changed. All because of faulty wiring. Marcus wanted to scream. Wanted to punch something. Instead, he just stood there, numb, watching flames devour everything he'd built. The next morning, the headlines were brutal. Rosa's table destroyed in fire. Marcus Reed's community restaurant gone. A symbol of hope. Lost. Marcus sat in his penthouse, scrolling through articles, feeling hollowed out. Nia tried to comfort him, but he couldn't hear her over the roar in his head. "We'll rebuild," she said. "With what?" "The insurance will cover some of it," but he shook his head. "It took years to build that place, to make it what it was. I don't know if I have it in me to do it again. So don't do it alone." He looked at her. "What do you mean? You've spent years giving to the community. Maybe it's time to let them give back." Nia set up a GoFundMe. The goal was modest, $500,000 to help with rebuilding costs. Marcus was skeptical. People have their own problems. They're not going to donate to a rich guy's restaurant. It's not about you being rich, Naya said. It's about what that place meant to them. She was right. Within 24 hours, the GoFundMe had raised $200,000. Within a week, $1.2 million. People donated $5, $20, $100, whatever they could afford. And with each donation came a message. Rose's table fed my family when we had nothing. This place gave my son his first job. You believed in us. Now we believe in you. Marcus read every message and cried because he'd spent so long thinking he was building something for people. He hadn't realized he'd been building something with them. The rebuild took 8 months, but this time it was different. Community members volunteered, local businesses donated materials, artists painted murals on the walls. Kids from the coding bootcamp designed a new website. Rose's Table 2.0 wasn't just Marcus's dream anymore. It was theirs. The reopening was a celebration unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Hundreds of people showed up, families, neighbors, strangers who'd donated to the GoFundMe. There was music, dancing, food, joy. And when Marcus stood on a makeshift stage to give a speech, he couldn't get through it without breaking down. This place he started, then stopped, overcome. Nia squeezed his hand. This place is proof that we're stronger together, that when we lift each other up, we can survive anything. Thank you for believing, for caring, for showing me what community really means. The crowd roared, and Rose's Table was born again. If you stayed with me this long, subscribe now, because Marcus's journey is about to take a turn no one saw coming. 7 years after buying Rose's Table, Marcus Reed decided to run for public office. It wasn't something he'd planned. But after the fire, after seeing what collective action could accomplish, he realized change didn't just happen in boardrooms or restaurants. It happened in policy, in legislation, in the systems that shaped people's lives. You're insane, Tariq said when Marcus told him. Probably. Do you have any idea what you're getting into? Politics is brutal. So is building a billion-dollar company from scratch. Tariq sighed. What office are you running for? City Council, District 4, West End. Your district, my home. Tariq studied him for a long moment, then smiled. All right, let's do it. The campaign was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. Running a company, you controlled the narrative. In politics, everyone had an opinion, and most of them were loud, wrong, and unshakable. His opponent was a career politician, Gerald Atkins, a white man in his 60s who'd held the seat for 12 years. Atkins had money, connections, and a political machine that had crushed every challenger before Marcus. He's going to come after you, his campaign manager, a fierce woman named Kendra, warned. Your past, your business, your race. Everything's fair game. Let him, Marcus said. I've got nothing to hide. Atkins started with attacks on Marcus's business record. Marcus Reed is a tech billionaire playing community advocate. He doesn't understand the struggles of working families. Marcus responded with a video, shot in Rose's Table, featuring people from the neighborhood talking about what he'd done for them. Marcus Reed grew up 3 blocks from here, one woman said. He knows struggle. He lived it. The video went viral. Atkins pivoted, attacked Marcus's radical ideas, expanding affordable housing, defunding certain police programs, investing in community health. Marcus Reed wants to destroy our city's safety, Atkins claimed. Marcus held a town hall, packed house, and spoke from the heart. I don't want to destroy safety. I want to redefine it. Because safety isn't just police. It's housing, healthcare, jobs, opportunity, and for too long. We've invested in one and neglected the others. The crowd stood and applauded. 3 weeks before the election, Atkins played his final card, a smear campaign. Photos of Marcus from college him at parties, drinking, acting like every other 20-year-old. Headlines screaming, "Is Marcus Reed fit to lead?" It was dirty, desperate, and effective. Marcus's poll numbers dropped. "We need to respond," Kendra said. "How?" "With truth." So Marcus did another video, but this time no script. Just him, looking into the camera, being human. "Yeah, I partied in college. I drank. I made mistakes. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of that, because I was young, and young people make mistakes. The question isn't whether you've been perfect. It's whether you've learned, whether you've grown, and I have." He paused. "Gerald Atkins wants you to believe I'm not qualified because I'm not a politician. But maybe that's exactly why you should vote for me, because I'm not here to play games. I'm here to serve, to fight, to make sure every kid in West End has the same shot I had." The video spread like wildfire, and on election night, Marcus Reed won by 8 points. His first year on city council was brutal. Bureaucracy, gridlock. Old guard politicians who resented him for disrupting their comfort. But Marcus didn't flinch. He pushed for affordable housing, fought for police reform, secured funding for youth programs, and slowly things began to change. Not fast, not perfect, but change. One night, after a particularly contentious council meeting, Marcus sat in his office, exhausted. Naya brought him coffee. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know. Some days I feel like I'm making a difference. Other days I feel like I'm shouting into the void." "Welcome to public service," she said with a wry smile. He laughed. "Yeah, but Marcus, you are making a difference, even when it doesn't feel like it." He looked at her. "How do you always know what to say?" "Because I know you, and I believe in you." He kissed her. "I love you. I love you too. Now, drink your coffee. You've got another meeting in 20 minutes. 10 years after buying Rosa's table, Marcus Reed stood in front of a crowd of 10,000 people. He was 42 years old, a tech billionaire, a restaurant owner, a city councilman, a husband, a son, a brother, a teacher. But tonight, he was just Marcus. It was the anniversary celebration, 10 years since that night he walked into La Rosa Bianca in a hoodie and got laughed at. 10 years since he'd made a decision that changed everything. Rosa's table was more than a restaurant now. It had become a movement. 15 other cities had opened their own versions community restaurants built on the same principles of dignity, respect, and radical hospitality. The coding bootcamp had graduated over 500 students. Titan Tech had gone public and was worth over $10 billion. Marcus's foundation had given away $200 million to black-owned businesses. And Marcus himself, he'd learned what success actually meant. 10 years ago, he began, his voice carrying over the crowd. "A waitress told me I didn't belong, that I couldn't afford to be in a certain space, and she was wrong. Not because I had money, though I did, but because nobody should be made to feel like they don't belong." He paused, looking out at faces of every color, every background, every story. "We've built something beautiful together. Not just a restaurant, not just a company, but a community, a belief system, a way of living that says, everybody matters, everybody deserves dignity, everybody belongs." The crowd erupted. "I'm not going to stand here and tell you the work is done. It's not. There's still injustice, still inequality, still people being judged by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. But I will tell you this: we're making progress, and we're going to keep making progress together. He looked at Nia, standing in the front row, tears streaming down her face. At Lorraine, beaming with pride. At Darren, his brother, his rock. At Tariq, his partner in every sense of the word. 10 years ago, someone tried to humiliate me, and yeah, I bought the restaurant. But the real victory wasn't the purchase. It was what came after. The choice to build something meaningful, to invest in people, to believe that wealth is responsibility, not entitlement. His voice dropped, became softer, more intimate. I'm not a perfect man. I've made mistakes. I've been angry, stubborn, blind to my own privilege. But I've also learned, and I've tried, and I think that's all any of us can do: try. Keep trying, keep showing up, keep fighting for a world where nobody gets laughed at for wearing a hoodie, where everybody has a seat at the table. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. "Thank you," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for believing in this dream. Thank you for building it with me. Thank you for reminding me that we're never alone, that together we can do anything." He stepped back from the microphone, and the crowd roared. Later that night, after the speeches and the food and the celebration, Marcus found himself alone in Rosa's table. The lights were dim, the tables were empty. Just him and the ghosts of 1,000 meals, 1,000 conversations, 1,000 moments of grace. He thought about Amber, wondered where she was, if she'd found peace, if she ever thought about that night. He thought about Giovanni, about Antonio, about all the people who'd been part of this story, even the painful parts. And he thought about the boy he used to be, the kid in West End with big dreams and no roadmap. The teenager who lost his father and had to become a man too fast. The young entrepreneur who faced rejection after rejection and kept going anyway. I did it, he thought. I actually did it. Not the money, not the fame, not the accolades. The meaning. His phone buzzed. A text from Naya. "Come home, baby. Let's celebrate properly." He smiled, texted back, "On my way." But before he left, he did one more thing. He walked to the wall of the restaurant, the one covered in photos and messages from the community, and he added his own note, written on a simple index card: "To anyone who's ever been told they don't belong, you do, you always have. And this table will always have room for you." He pinned it to the wall, then walked out into the Atlanta night, the air warm and alive with possibility. Marcus Reed wasn't a hero. He was just a man who got humiliated and chose to turn pain into purpose, who learned that power isn't about dominance, it's about service, who discovered that legacy isn't what you build, but who you lift up along the way. And as he drove home to his wife, his mother, his life, Marcus knew one thing for certain: he'd been laughed at, dismissed, underestimated, and he'd turned it all into something beautiful, something lasting, something real. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past it. Share it. Comment on what it made you feel. Follow for more stories that challenge, inspire, and remind you that redemption is always possible. Because Marcus's journey isn't just his, it's ours. Every single one of us has been underestimated. Every single one of us has the power to prove them wrong. The only question is, will you?